Hi, my name's Stuart Neill and I've been podcasting about games for a number of years now. Recently I've moved from talking about games I've played and started interviewing the people who make them. In April 2020, Richard and Tony of Far Few Giants commenced work as part of a Games Accelerator programme in Northern Ireland. With this project they had the rare opportunity to make a game and share their own story without being bound by non-disclosure agreements that are commonly used within the industry. They asked if I would help them document their year, and I certainly wasn't going to turn the offer down. In this first episode, which was recorded about a month and a half into the programme, they discussed their reasons behind wanting to document the year, but I start by asking Richard for more information about the Accelerator programme.
We started Platform, which is a games accelerator in Northern Ireland, Belfast. We are planning to make 6 prototypes, 2 larger games and 1 final game over the period of 12 months. I completely fucked this, Tony. You usually much better explain
this. You went straight into we're recording mode, and nah. Well, yeah, okay. You got the basics. The project is that we've been really fortunate to be funded by Northern Ireland Screen, and they have essentially given us 12 months of funding to pursue a game. Mm-hmm. So the structure that is in is like the first 6 weeks we kind of mess around. You make a game a week, just kind of very quick and dirty, putting ideas together. Then after that, there's a further 12 weeks where you take the 2 best of those prototypes and work them up into like a proper kind of alpha and more developed and with all the gameplay there. Mm-hmm. Or I guess maybe a vertical slice is more appropriate. And then for the remainder of the year, it's like 6 or 7 months, they have you choose the one best out of those 2 more developed ones and then work that up into a game that you actually release. Mm-hmm. But because they're a government agency, they can't really dictate to us actually what we create. So it's not like a normal publishing deal where you get, you pitch a project, and then they'll give you usually the minimum amount of money to just go and make that thing that you have pitched them. With us, it's like Richard said, an incubator more, where they're trying to grow and empower small companies to get to the next level. So we more or less get the funding regardless, as long as we keep delivering something. They can't qualitatively really judge what we're putting out. So yeah, we get to make whatever we want, basically for 12 months and have our salaries paid. So we're very fortunate.
I see it as kind of like an artist in residence.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've basically been funded to do the crazy shit that we do on a bigger scale because we're able to focus on it full time rather than balancing it with contract work on the side.
Yeah, like the last couple of years we've been trying to do this on our own with just like project-based funding and trying to daisy chain those together, and it's so difficult because you end up spending so much of your time doing stuff that is not making games, that it like just chasing the next bit of funds, and then you almost get the job actually done as quickly as possible so that you still have time to chase the next amount. And it's so it's not a great situation for just being creative and being able to come up with something that's like innovative. And it's also just highly stressful, like living hand to mouth like that. So what we're doing now is just a lot less stress, and a lot more creative and fulfilling. And like we've immediately started producing much better work than we were beforehand.
How did the opportunity for the funding arise?
I'd say that it kind of built out of our relationship with Northern Ireland Screen over the past couple of years. Yeah. So I moved to Belfast 2 years ago now, and initially I pitched them a couple of projects. One was called Duck Build and one was called Ring of Fire. They liked them both. We initially went ahead with Ring of Fire with the goal of building the prototype out and taking it to publishers.
So they gave us almost seized money just to get that prototype finished.
Yeah. There's a strong focus here on making a pilot or like a prototype sort of scale project and then pitching that to publishers. But the overwhelming response is that the amount of time and the amount of money you have to build a prototype is not enough to make a vertical slice that the publisher actually wants to fund, but also some of the ideas coming out of that program aren't necessarily commercial enough to be publishable. So we're trying to flip the model on its head, and we're trying to tackle it from us making a lot of different prototypes that may not be very commercial, and build up an audience so that when it comes to the end of the 12 months, we have something published under our own belts that people can look at and see that we're actually making good quality work, that will have hopefully some fans that we've built up along the way who'll be looking forward to the next thing, and generally just be a more viable group to do business with.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's about perceptions. Like, we've often come across this idea that video game publishers, when looking at indie teams, are looking for unbridled creativity. But it's so difficult to do unbridled creativity when you're thoroughly bridled by the fact that you need money, so you have to pitch a certain thing to get a small amount of seed investment that everybody knows isn't quite enough to actually get the job done, and then you're going looking for contract work and all that kind of thing. And in indie publishing, at the end of the day, you're competing with people who are able to put in years of work on their alpha or on their vertical slice because they've got so much money saved up from a AAA job, or because they're able to live with their parents, or live off a partner, or
working on it in the weekends and evenings and stuff.
Yeah. A lot of the people who come out of nowhere and just get signed by a big publisher, that is the situation. They haven't had maybe a regional finance thing like we've had in the past, but they'll have had several times the worth of that in reduced cost living and that kind of thing, or money they've personally saved. So, if you're given 10k, which realistically amounts to about 4 months worth of freelancers' work, with costs an accountant and legal for looking at the paperwork with a publisher if you're lucky and you get one, all that kind of stuff. If you have 4 person months worth of work to get something that's going to compete with all those other people who have got years of living in their mom's house to work on this. I'm stereotyping a little bit, and there's loads of super talented, super hardworking people, but there are people who are somehow even more privileged than I am as a white man. Yeah,
I have to say we got very, very lucky.
We did.
When I moved over to Belfast, I moved from a regional hub called Guildford, which is kind of the games industry hub outside of London, the biggest hub outside of London, I would say. There's a huge amount of AAA game studios there and a pretty thriving indie scene. There's plenty of work around, freelance work. And when I moved over here to move in with my partner, we were concerned that we would just run out of freelance work, because a lot of indie studios haven't really, even though they allow for remote work, they still want to work with the people who are in their local scene and who they're friends with. Which when I moved to Belfast, I was a big fish in a small pond, whereas before I was a small fish in a big pond. And people were looking to me for work, which was surprising and but not totally unexpected. And so we needed to find another way to make our business work. And that was just a combination of me doing a bunch of contract work, Tony doing bits and pieces, and us applying to as many regional funds as we could. And I'm so goddamn fortunate that Northern Ireland has probably what is the best localized development funds in the UK, on par or even better than a lot of funds in Europe. So I think we've really benefited from that so far.
Yeah, been super lucky to be able to work with an ice cream.
So why did you decide to document this project?
So I think it would be just something that is probably useful for other people to get like a window into what the process is actually like, what the realities are behind being an independent developer, and the fact that it's a job.
It's a living.
Yeah, it is very difficult sometimes emotionally to stay dedicated to. And I also think that it will show quite how not dreamy the actual like reality can be in terms of funding and like business and shite, basically.
Like stress and stuff.
Yeah, I spend 2/5 of my time, I think, on shite, on like just contracts and getting us paid and having meetings with publishers and meetings with other people that I may not entirely be convinced of the utility of, let's say. Yeah. That stuff. But, so that was a downer. But, however, as problematic as certain aspects of the film may be, like, when I was, like, 20 and weighing up whether I would ever make it to do this kind of stuff. I remember watching Indie Game the movie and absolutely loving it. I think I bought it on iTunes or something the day that it came out, and then later on I bought the like limited edition Blu-ray where there was only like 80 of them made or something. So I was like, yes, this is going to be me in the future. I'm going to do something like that. And the ideas in it weren't entirely healthy, and it didn't reflect the business stuff or the how the fuck can you afford to do this stuff.
I still have no idea how a few of those games got made, like Fez.
Yeah. Well, it was all, I think it was all grant money.
Right.
Somehow. I mean, similar to what we've probably done. But I just think there's an ideal version of this where 12, 18 months down the line, whatever game we've made is somehow successful and we've done everything right, and this is the one. And actually being able to put out something that's kind of behind the scenes and shows the way it got made in an honest way that acknowledges where we've been incredibly lucky and doesn't make us look like we're just like hardworking geniuses, which we're definitely not. Neither of those words apply. I think that would be really valuable. I think a younger me would appreciate it.
Yeah. So I listen to a hell of a lot of podcasts, and I listen to a podcast called Startup, which is very similar to what I'm hoping we'll be able to achieve, where they follow literally a startup of a podcast company over a period of years until they eventually sell out to Spotify, which I don't think we'll do, but it was an interesting ride for sure. And we like watching video game documentaries like No Clip. We liked Double Fine Adventure. We liked seeing how the sausage gets made, essentially. And we're in a very, very fortunate position where this year we're not working on anything that is massively NDA. We have complete access to share everything we're working on, and we want to share everything we're working on. And for me, like, looking at my younger self, I absolutely inhaled every single like indie developer bio podcast I could put my hands on, just to try and learn any scrap of useful information that would serve me later in life. And I think some of the steps that we've taken, even though we've been massively fortunate with our funding and stuff, are repeatable and like replicatable on zero budget. And we try to do as much as we can on zero budget when and where we can. So I think that could be a bit of a template for like new developers to pick up on, that are like a more modern approach that isn't antiquated by years and years of AAA experience.
Yeah. I think part of the answer there that you touched upon is that I think we should do it because we can. Like, there are almost, like you were saying, no opportunities like this, like what we're doing this year, that exist in this industry. So generally speaking, nobody can be quite as shameless. Nobody can really expose themselves quite as much as I think that we can, because we've got, public money with very, very few strings attached funding us for a year. So yeah, we can be completely honest, and we can talk about absolutely everything we're doing in our days.
At least until the cease and desists appear outdoors.
Yeah. And just by virtue of the fact that we can do that, and we've been given this opportunity, I feel like we should try and share the things that we've learned from it.
Yeah, there's definitely not. It's not going to be all positive. We're not going to get it right all the time, but I think that's part of the fun.
Yeah. We've already got it wrong 95% of the time, and yet somehow are still swinging.
So that's it for episode 1, and hopefully you can hear that this is going to be a really interesting story to follow. If you haven't already, please follow the show on anchor.fm. And if you want to get in contact with us, you can email inthefootstepsofgiants@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter. FarFewGiants is @FarFewGiants. Richard is @AnimTree. Tony is @Anthony_D_Fault. And music and sound for the episode was recorded by Richard Campbell, who can be followed on Twitter @ZiggityBang. You can also follow me @SaintlyStuart. Until next time, thank you very much for listening.